Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt Francesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or are just starting out, High Lift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Well, hello, and welcome back to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt Francesco. And, I was talking in a previous episode about some of the emotional aspects of doing a transition of your business. Wanted to highlight is the importance of having somebody to kind of quarterback or be the conductor of your process. Now, here's a story. I had a client, it's one of my very, very early collision clients. We were starting to look at transition planning. He had two kids that were in the business. We had some issues, one ended up filtering out. He had his key guy who kind of stepped into a leadership role. And so we were trying to put together these things. But what happened was he had a financial advisor that was out there. And the problem was as I was trying to coordinate all of this stuff for him, he was going separately and trying to get, well, this is an attorney issue. I'm going to talk to the attorney. Oh, this is a CPA issue. I'm going to talk to the CPA. Oh, this is my financial advisor issue. I'm going to talk to him. And what happened was we really just spun our wheels. I'll be honest with you. Been working with the client for 10 years. And we still haven't made any progress from a structural standpoint on getting his transition done. Now, thankfully, I've been able to help him create a vision for what he wants his life to look like. He's working toward that, but we still don't have the structures in place. And again, I don't know how many listeners listen to symphony music. Okay, but I think the illustration of an orchestra really kind of explains this in a very clear way. So if you think about an orchestra is made up of a number of musicians who each play individual instruments. They are all they're experts at that instrument that they play. And, so again, you've got some of the top people in the world that are playing in an orchestra, playing their specific instrument. The problem is that you've got these experts who are all playing different instruments. How does an orchestra get a coordinated effort? And really what they do is they have what's called the conductor. And the conductor is the one that's pulling all of these experts that are using their expertise to come together to form a cohesive whole. And that's really how your financial life and your transition life needs to work. It's really important to have, kind of somebody who's kind of coordinating the effort among all the other professionals that are going to be out there, because there's going to be issues with taxes. There's going to be legal issues. There's going to be issues with negotiating deals if you're looking at a third party sale. There's going to be family issues. There's going to be all kinds of these issues. And so I think it's really important that you have one person who's kind of quarterbacking or conducting the process as you go through. So why should somebody hire an advisor to basically quarterback their financial life instead of just going to individual professionals? And I think there's really 4 areas that we need to look at. We need to look at coordination. We need to look at strategy. We need to look at accountability and emotional guidance. So let's first talk about a little bit about the emotional guidance and just kind of the role of that advisor as the quarterback. And this is whether it's a certified exit planner or financial planner like myself, or whether it's somebody who, somebody else on the team who can really, family office, something like that can help to make sure that all the pieces of the orchestra are playing in unison. It's really somebody who can see the big picture of a client's financial life. I mean, to give you a great example, when I'm working with a client, typically I like to do as the initial part of our work together is come up with, help them develop a personal vision and then seeing where they are. Now, when you're doing any kind of, whether it's financial planning, transition planning, you got to think of it like you're taking a trip. So when you're taking a trip, what do? You got your GPS here, right? What's the first thing you put in your GPS? The first thing is, where do you want to go? Okay. If we don't know where we want to go, we're not going to get there. All right. So we got to put in where we want to go. That's where the personal vision comes in. So having somebody who can help to guide you through that process, to talk about, okay, what are the things that you want to do? How would you want to spend your week? How much time do you want to spend playing golf? How much time do you want to spend fishing? How much time do you want to spend racing? How much time do you want to spend with family? How much time do you want to uh, do consulting work, and starting to add those things up and seeing how can we start creating this vision of what our life's going to look like afterwards. So now, we've got kind of the destination. We've got, begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey talks about. So then the second part that we're going to put into our GPS is, where are you now? So we've got to figure out where you are now. So we've got to look at, what is the value of your business? What is the potential for your business to grow over a period of time? What do you have in personal assets? And what are you going to need as a whole to live this personal vision that we've designed on the front end? So again, we've got, where do you want to go and where are you starting? And again, and so part of that is, again, coming up with a financial plan, or as I like to call it, a financial roadmap, because it's going to shift and change. Life is not static. Things happen and we have to be able to adapt. So I think having a roadmap that can be adjusted as life circumstances hits us is very important. And so again, I think that's the first step, and why it's important to have that advisor from the front end. I think the second thing you need to look at is having that holistic oversight. What I mean, holistic is one of those terms that's kind of overplayed, but really what it means is having, the general vision and making sure that everything is flowing. So again, to use the symphony analogy again, that each instrument, while it's an individual, is playing for the collective whole of the piece that the conductor's trying to conduct. It's the same sort of thing in your plan, that advisor is going to be looking from a big picture and making sure that the tax planning that we're doing fits into that holistic plan, that the legal planning that we're doing, that the estate planning that we're doing, whatever those things are, is all working in functions, and look at the gaps and inefficiencies that can arise without that central coordinator. I mean, I'll give you a great example is, had a client who went through, we actually went through the initial process, helped them to build a vision, helped them to, here was the plan of action. And then he decided, I'm going to go talk to my personal CPA, who didn't understand the whole holistic aspect and what we were trying to accomplish, and basically talked him out of it. And to this day, he's still spinning his wheels, trying to get this transition plan done in the most tax efficient way. And it was an internal transfer with his kids. So now his kids are also getting frustrated with the process. So it's really important to have somebody who's kind of overseeing the whole process. The third part is having that strategic vision and being able to do the long-term planning. It's actually the role of that central advisor who creates a cohesive, a long-term strategy that's going to align with your goals. And so again, somebody who's knowledgeable, like somebody who does exit planning and financial planning, should have a good knowledge of tax planning, estate planning, investment management, financial planning, M&A, all of those things, so that again, they can basically help to conduct that. Now, like I know in my case, I don't profess to be the expert in every one of those areas. I know tax planning, okay, but I'm always going to defer to a tax planning CPA, all right, for the final decision. But at least I can talk the language that the client can't necessarily talk. I can bring ideas out to that tax professional or to the business attorney and say, what does this make sense from, and we can have a conversation among the three of us with all of our expertise kind of pulled together. I'll give you a great example. I have a transition I'm doing right now, again, family transition. And what we decided to do is convert from an S Corp to a C Corp. It can be a very complicated transition, but there's a lot of benefits to it. Basically, we can do more gifting of shares to the child who's getting the business. We can utilize pre-tax dollars to help fund the transition for the father who's transitioning out of the business. We can have lower tax rates instead of being taxed at ordinary income tax rates, which an S Corp is, because it's a pass through. We can use corporate rates, which are significantly lower. But again, I know enough about this stuff, but I want to bring the attorney in who's the expert in it, how to do this, and the tax planning attorney. Does this make sense from a tax standpoint? So now you have a coordinated effort. And so I think that's a really important aspect of it. But again, always tying in the strategic vision. What is it that the client ultimately wants out of this plan? And again, just as the conductor knows what he wants the piece to sound like, that's basically what the advisor's doing for the client, because they've put the time in with the client to understand what they want and to help them to clarify what that vision really is. And then I think the fourth one is the accountability and execution. Too many of us, I mean, we get busy with life. Life just happens. I mean, we've got kids, we've got our businesses, there's challenges with that. In the collision industry, you've got insurance companies that are, short paying you, and, you're worried about supplementals and how are we going to drive business through and all of these things. And the problem is that you continue to procrastinate because basically just because you're distracted. And I know I've been working with a coach for 15 years, and it's one of the most beneficial things. People look at me and say, "Why do you need a coach?" I said, I need a coach for two reasons. One is I'm in the battle. Okay. This is in my business. I'm in the battle, and in the battle, the guns are going off and there's smoke, and it's sometimes hard to see through a lot of the action that's happening. And he's like the general that's sitting up on the hillside, or in Norcom, who's looking at drone screens and seeing what's happening to be able to make maneuvers for the infantry that's down below. And that's how my coach is. He's outside the fray. He can see it from a different perspective than I can see it. And so that way he can help to direct me and says, you're not looking at this, you're not looking at that. I think the second thing that's important about it is, again, he can hold me accountable. Okay. So we come to a decision. This is what I need to do in my business. The next time I talk to him, first thing he could say is, okay, where do we stand on this project that we were working on? And sometimes maybe it's like, I was working on it, but now I've been thinking differently and I want to shift gears, and now I can get another input. But I think it's really important, again, to have that accountability and that help in the execution, because again, too many times we don't see our own blind spots, and having somebody that can do that. Again, a client procrastinated on updating an estate plan, and all of a sudden they died. I had one who never changed his beneficiaries. He had his three children listed. His one son had died before him, never changed the beneficiary. His ultimate goal was to make sure that the son's spouse got that portion, but because the beneficiary hadn't been changed, that was not able to happen. And the other two siblings had to kind of work out a deal, but it ended up paying ordinary income tax on these instead of having it just be a tax deferred transition, just because he procrastinated on changing beneficiaries on an IRA, something as simple as that. So really, again, we talk a lot about this, the proactive problem solving, all part of that, just, again, having that monitoring and accountability. So I think having that point person, and I'm actually going to talk about in probably the next podcast about why DIY plans or do-it-yourself plans don't work. And I think a lot of this kind of all ties together, because I think it's really important to have that somebody who's kind of helping you see the big picture and have oversight on the whole plan, knowing what that whole picture is, helping to create a strategic vision for what you want your life to look like, holding you accountable to do the things that you need to get done, and just giving you that emotional guidance through it. Again, I talked about in a previous podcast about the emotional aspects of, navigating a transition, and it can be very difficult, and having somebody to kind of hold your hand and walk you through that. There's nothing wrong with having the humility to be able to do that. And then also just the proactive problem solving and saying, when issues come up, here's how we can attack this, and here's how we can solve this problem. So I think it's critical in any aspect to have kind of a point person, kind of whether you want to call it a conductor, a quarterback, or a personal CFO, somebody who's helping you to guide you through the process, that knows the aspects of the process. I mean, that's one of the benefits of being a certified exit planner. I know the tax implications of certain deals. I know the legal ramifications of certain things. Now, again, I will always defer to the attorney or the CPA or any of the other professionals that might be involved. But again, I know enough to be able to say, what they're saying is right. And no, I think we need to move in this direction, because this is really what's going to most optimally get you to the plan that you want. So again, what I want you to do is just encourage you to evaluate your current financial situation. If you need somebody to conduct or be the quarterback of all of this, and feel free to reach out to us. You can go to my website, highliftfinancial.com, click on the Let's Talk button that's at the top. I'll give everybody 30 minutes of my time, no charge, again, complimentary, just to be able to talk about your situation, see where we may be able to help you. And if we can't, I do promise you this, that I'll always get you pointed at least in the right direction. So, but again, I want to thank you for listening to Your Business, Your Life today. If you've not subscribed to the podcast, please click the subscribe button below. That way, when a new episode drops, you'll automatically go to your device and you'll get a lot of this great content that we're putting out. And also, if you like what you're hearing, please give us a 5-star review. That helps us to move up to the charts too. So again, I just want to thank you for listening to Your Business, Your Life today. Take care. God bless, and let's make it a great day. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
All information is obtained from sources deemed reliable but not guaranteed. No tax or legal advice is given nor intended. Content provided herein or on our website should not be construed as an offer for investment advice or for securities, insurance, or other investment products. Investments involve the risk of loss and are not guaranteed. Consult a qualified legal, tax, accounting, or financial professional before implementing any investments or strategy discussed here. High Lift Financial is a DBA for Francesco Financial Concierge, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided through Cornerstone Planning Group, LLC, an independent advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission.